Hello, everyone. You're listening to Psychology Outside the Box. The internet is full of psychology wannabes and posers who are trying to replace me. Well, it's payback time. My name is Dr. Flower. I have a PhD in psychology, so I'm not a wannabe or a knockoff. I've been teaching college and university courses for 20 years. Psychology is a vast field that connects to many things in your life. If you have a curious mind, you're definitely in the right place. This podcast will be interesting and informative, fun but factual. I want you to learn but also enjoy the experience. Some topics will be mainstream, but others will be outside the box, far beyond the ordinary. There will be lots of surprises. I will open your mind to new ideas and new ways of thinking. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Today's topic is about identical twins and can they get away with murder? Twins swapping identities is the idea behind the Netflix show called Echoes. Michelle Monaghan plays identical twins who have switched places every birthday since they were kids into adulthood, tricking their husbands and children. But things go wrong when they find themselves as suspects in a murder. The show may be highly dramatized, but in real life, twins committing crimes together or separately isn't uncommon. First, we got to cover the basics. You do understand what your dad did to your mom in order for you to exist. Just think for a minute. Oh my God, my mom and dad had sex. And all mom really wanted was a back rub. Well, one way or another, it happened. Maybe it was love at first sight, or maybe it took a long time for them to get together. But eventually, your lifelong journey began at conception, approximately 9 months before you were born. You probably don't remember, but you began life as a single cell, a fertilized egg, and developed into a human being made up of approximately 30 trillion cells. Although millions of sperm are released during intercourse, only a single sperm enters the egg released from the woman's ovary, one sperm only. The 23 single chromosomes from mom's egg combine with the 23 from dad's sperm, forming a complete set of 46. At this moment, the life of a new and special human being begins. This new cell, called the zygote, that's Z-Y-G-O-T-E, is only 1/20th the size of the head of a pin. If a single sperm combines with a single egg, where do identical twins come from? A very good question, my astute audience. You are familiar with the expression, buy one, get one free? Well, with twins, one was planned and the second was a really big surprise. Of course, we know that the second child isn't really free. Don't expect extra maternity leave or 50% off clothes or groceries. The fertilized egg, or zygote, is one single cell. The zygote begins moving down the fallopian tube on its way to the uterus, where it will arrive around a week later. As it travels, the original cell starts to divide, first into 2 cells, then 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. This process of cell division is called mitosis. Every one of the new cells contains exactly the same chromosomes and DNA that were found in the original fertilized egg. The cell division process continues throughout the pregnancy, after birth, and throughout our lives when we have trillions of cells in our body. Every single day of your life, your body uses mitosis to replace billions of dead cells. Even now, whatever stage in life you're at, your cells have exactly the same DNA that you started with at conception. And for better or worse, that is the DNA that you will pass on to your children. There is no way to upgrade or improve your DNA. My daughter may never forgive me for inheriting my kidney stones, and, in her opinion, a nose that is just a little bit too long. Identical twins are created when the zygote splits into 2 equal parts, approximately 3 to 6 days after conception. This will form 2 separate and distinct embryos. If there are 24 cells when the zygote splits, then half the cells will move into each of the 2 embryos. And because of mitosis, all the cells in both embryos will have identical DNA. There is no other way that two people can ever have exactly the same DNA. This can only happen with identical twins. Mitosis is when individual cells inside the zygote divide or duplicate to form new cells. This is perfectly normal. But zygote splitting into two equal parts is not the same as mitosis. Splitting is an abnormal event. It is a mistake that shouldn't happen, but sometimes it does happen. Scientists don't actually know what makes the zygote think,
Being one person is a bit boring. I'll make two instead.
so the exact reason is still a mystery. Apparently, it is commonplace even for parents of identical twins to become confused about who's who, especially when they are infants. So there are probably a bunch of identical twins out there who may have switched identities when they were very young. It doesn't really matter too much because the only thing that was switched was their name, so no harm done. As I mentioned before, identical twins are formed a few days after the egg is fertilized when it splits into two distinct embryos, each with a bunch of cells that all have exactly the same DNA. On very rare occasions, the fertilized egg may not split entirely, and this results in conjoined twins. So there are two different babies, but they remain physically connected, most often at the chest, abdomen, or pelvis. Conjoined twins may also share one or more internal body organs such as heart, liver, or digestive system. This is a very traumatic event, and more than half the time, conjoined twins don't survive. Surgery to separate conjoined twins is a common practice, but is extremely dangerous. In many cases, the surgery results in the death of one or both of the twins, particularly if they are joined at the head or share a vital organ. Brittany and Abigail Hensel were born in 1990 and are conjoined twins. The twins have a single torso or upper body, but with two separate heads and necks. They have 2 arms and 2 legs, and each girl controls 1 arm and 1 leg, which makes driving a car a bit more challenging. By coordinating their efforts, they walk, run, swim, play volleyball and the piano, and ride a bicycle normally. Together, they can type on a computer keyboard. They both successfully passed their driver's license exams, but only after taking the test twice, once for Brittany and once for Abigail. They also received 2 separate teaching licenses and are now working at a primary school in Minnesota. They are 2 distinct people, but because they are physically joined, they are paid only one single salary. Personally, I think this is unfair, but many people on the internet believe it is perfectly justified. Maybe it can be justified on strictly legal grounds, but I think this unique situation calls for compassion and kindness. After all, they are distinct individuals with different personalities, separate brains, a separate teacher's license, and also different social insurance numbers. They hope to get married and have children, but so far that has not happened. The twins have 2 sets of lungs, 2 hearts, and 2 stomachs, but 1 large intestine. They also have only a single shared reproductive system, and so if they ever do have a child, there would be 2 mothers and 1 father. So, do identical twins have identical fingerprints? This is a common belief, but it is wrong. While identical twins may have very similar appearance, each twin still has his own unique fingerprints. Although twins' fingerprints do tend to be more similar than those of strangers, forensic experts and state-of-the-art recognition software can still spot the difference, making it harder than you might think for twins to become criminal masterminds. No research has ever found that identical twins share exactly the same fingerprints. So while identical twins might be able to fool their friends and family about who's who, there is always one surefire way to tell them apart. In fact, everyone, including you and me, has prints that are different on each of our 5 fingers, Every digit has a different ridge pattern, which produces a different fingerprint. This is why in movies and on TV they will take prints from all 5 fingers instead of just one. The left and right hand will also have completely different fingerprints. They are not mirror images. The iris is the colored, donut-shaped portion of the eye that surrounds the black pupil at the center of your eye. A person's iris pattern is completely unique and remains unchanged throughout life. Although iris recognition is less well known, it is widely considered to be the most accurate form of identification and better than fingerprints. Iris scans are highly accurate and fast. An infrared camera captures photos of a person's eyes and maps the unique iris pattern to verify their identity. No 2 irises are alike, including those of identical twins. By using an infrared camera, recognition is available even at night or in the dark. Since the iris is different between the left and right eye, recognition can be performed separately by each eye. Although I've been talking about identical twins, fraternal twins are actually far more common. Fraternal twins also share the same uterus during pregnancy and are born at the same time. But they are not identical because they are formed by 2 different eggs that are fertilized by different sperm. Fraternal twins may look and behave very differently from each other, and they may be different sexes as well. That's because they only share about 50% of their DNA. So why do fraternal twins not have the same DNA? Although women have 2 ovaries, most of the time only a single egg is released during each menstrual cycle. On some occasions, a woman's ovaries may release 2 or more eggs at the same time. If there are 2 different eggs, then each egg can be fertilized by a different sperm. Therefore, the 2 fertilized eggs will have completely different combinations of DNA from mom and dad. So there may be some similarities, but they will never, ever be identical. Although fraternal twins are roommates who share a uterus for 9 months, they are no more similar than brothers or sisters that are born at different times. And now at last we can address the original question. Can identical twins actually get away with murder? DNA analysis in the criminal justice system began in the 1980s. Many cases have been solved and many people have been proved innocent because of DNA testing. Although DNA testing started out using blood samples, it can also be tested with hair, bone, saliva, and semen. In a lot of older cases, they will use pieces of bone, hair, or skin tissues. What may be confusing during a criminal investigation is that identical twins cannot be distinguished from DNA samples. Their DNA is identical. Even identical twins do have certain things that distinguish them. Scars or tattoos can often help the police tell them apart. They also have different fingerprints, so when a clean set is found on the scene, that's a huge advantage. In Arizona a few years ago, either Orlando or Brandon Nemhard murdered someone outside a nightclub. At first, Orlando was arrested, and the case against him seemed pretty solid. Witness after witness came forward to say they saw someone that looked just like him shoot a young clubgoer who later died. But the case turned shaky because his identical twin brother, Brandon, was also at the scene. The police still don't know which one did it, and the murder weapon was never found. So yes, it is possible for identical twins to get away with crimes by blaming one another. On a 2008 July evening in Duluth, Georgia, 40-year-old Janae Coleman was sitting in her car near a transit station waiting for her daughter to finish work. Across the street, a man walked out of a gas station, pointed a gun, and demanded her car. Then he shot her and drove away. Janae Coleman did not survive. It was a horrible and senseless crime. The next day, the stolen car was recovered and processed for fingerprints and other evidence. Inside the car, a cigarette butt was found and submitted for DNA analysis. The DNA sample was matched to Donald Smith, who was in the system because of a prior drug conviction. Smith fit the description provided by witnesses and resembled the suspect in the surveillance video. Investigators arrested him in what seemed like an open and shut case. But Donald Smith denied any involvement in the carjacking and murder, even when investigators showed him the surveillance video and presented the DNA evidence. At the Smith family's home, investigators asked the parents if they could identify the suspect in the gas station surveillance video. The parents, as well as their daughter, all stated that the person in the video was Ronald Smith, the identical twin to Donald Smith. Donald would later admit that he didn't want to blame his brother, so was hesitant to accuse him. The investigators turned to fingerprint analysis for more definitive proof. It was determined that the prints from Janae Coleman's stolen car were a match to Ronald Smith. Ronald eventually confessed to the crime and was charged with murder, and his twin, Donald, was released from custody. This was a close call, but in the end, truth and justice prevailed, just like on TV. But sometimes identical twins are a nightmare for the legal system. In the early hours of February 25, 2009, 3 masked men broke into a luxury department store in Berlin, Germany. Surveillance cameras showed them sliding down ropes from the roof before raiding display cases filled with jewelry. The men escaped with $6.8 million worth of goods. It was a spectacular heist. The police had surveillance footage and also found a latex glove at the scene. Forensic analysis revealed that it contained a trace of DNA from a single drop of sweat. But when they ran it through their criminal database, there wasn't just one result. There were 2. 27-year-old identical twins, Hassan and Abbas. This raised a problem because the DNA sample could not distinguish between the twins. German authorities could prove that at least one of the brothers had taken part in the robbery, but they couldn't establish which one without a reasonable doubt. At least one was guilty, but the twins refused to cooperate with police. Before the case could even go to trial, the twins were released. The stolen millions were never recovered, and the twins were very grateful to the German legal system. Sometimes crime does pay, and these twins really hit the jackpot. In another case, Kevin Dugar claimed his innocence for years. But then a letter he received in 2013 while in jail changed everything. 8 years before he read that letter, Kevin was handed a 54-year sentence for the killing of Antoine Taylor, a member of the Blackstones street gang. Kevin had always claimed his innocence. He even declined a generous plea bargain, refusing to admit to something he did not do. When Kevin Dugar got the letter from his twin brother, Carl, they had not seen each other for many years. They were both serving time in different Illinois prisons. As kids, Kevin and Carl would sometimes switch places to fool their teachers and friends. And in their 20s, while selling drugs on the streets of Chicago, they would both be known by a single nickname, Twin. Carl's letter started with updates about his life, but then he said,
"Look, Kevin, I'm beating around the bush with you on some crap I've been keeping a secret for years, and I have to get it off my chest before it kills me. First off, I'd like to say I'm sorry for all these years you missed out of your daughter's life, and for all the pain you've suffered over the last decade or so. You know the case that you were found guilty on, and you swore you were being set up? I know you were telling the truth because I'm the reason your life got screwed up."
Initially, a judge found the confession completely unreliable, so Kevin's nightmare did not end right away. It was not until 2018 when Kevin Dugar's conviction was reversed by the Court of Appeals. In the near future, there may come a time when DNA testing can actually tell the difference between identical twins. This new technique is called second-generation genome mapping, and it can find tiny differences in DNA between identical twins. These very small differences are due to mutations that may influence one twin but would not occur in the other. A study in the journal Nature showed that identical twins do experience genetic mutations, so their DNA may start off exactly the same, but it can change slightly over time. Such mutations are exceptionally rare, but they do exist and may create very small differences between the identical twins. In fact, all of us experience some mutations throughout our lives. At this stage, these methods are incredibly expensive, and as far as I know, they are not yet routinely used in court cases. Well, all good things must come to an end, including this podcast. But in the words of the Terminator,
I be Buck.
and I hope you will too. But next time, don't forget to bring cookies. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help me to attract more listeners by leaving a positive review. As you may already know, my true purpose and goal is complete world domination. As they say, go big or go home. Where Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon Bonaparte failed, we will succeed. With your help, my followers will grow and grow until we are unstoppable. But even if more listeners do come, you will always be my first and most favorite. Join my next podcast in 7 to 10 days. It would be truly awesome if you could follow Psychology Outside the Box on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, folks, it's all over for today. We're finished. We reached the end. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I will miss you so very much.